Fantastic. Fantastic. Could you stand? Remove your hats for the national anthem. It will be performed by Alma Foresca. Just speak louder. Is that what it is? Closer. All right. So what I want to do is we're going to start off with an interfaith invocation. I want to bring up to the stage now Reverend Gary McCann, Rabbi Edward Friedman, and Brother Amir Abdul-Jalil. Just a quick introduction of who these gentlemen are. The Reverend Gary McCann has been the senior minister of New England Congregational Church since 1986 and involved in community and interfaith activities for over 35 years. New England Congregational is an open and affirming, inclusive church. Reverend McCann and NECC welcomes all who wish to join for worship and fellowship, regardless of race and ethnic heritage, religious faith, economic status, or sexual orientation. Reverend McCann is proud that NEC is home for people of all ages living in all kinds of households and communities. Brother Amir Abdul-Jalil is with the Muslim Association of Bolingbrook, dedicated to education and outreach. Brother Jalil is the former vice chairman and vice principal at the Bolingbrook Weekend School. Being committed to education extends to himself as he completes his MBA in 2 semesters. He is passionate around facilitating interfaith conversations, and to that end is a volunteer with Gain Peace, a nonprofit organization that helps confront misconceptions about Islam, and he is the event coordinator for the mosque open house events in Bolingbrook. Rabbi Edward Friedman has been the spiritual leader of Temple B'nai Israel in Aurora since last September. He has previously served congregations in Dallas, Texas, Charleston, South Carolina, which has amazing food, and various places in New England. Most recently, he was rabbi of Freehold Jewish Center in New Jersey. He has participated in numerous organizations and committees both in the Jewish community and the general community in the cities in which he has served. He is the past president of the Greater Carolinas Association of Rabbis, and he has chaired the Greater Carolinas Association of Rabbis Annual Interfaith Institute in North Carolina. He authored 2 chapters in The Observant Life, one on disabilities and one on caring for animals. In addition to his rabbinic ordination from the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, he is also ordained interfaith peace minister. Please welcome the gentleman.
I invite you to prayer as we begin this event. To you, Holy One, who is known by many names and described with many adjectives, we come today as a community in solidarity with and in prayer for our sisters and brothers who are refugees and immigrants in this wonderful city of Aurora. We recall in the Judeo-Christian scriptures the requirement to welcome refugees and strangers and immigrants from other lands. We recall in the Quran those instructions for welcoming migrants and refugees, praising those who go to the assistance of people in distress. The Tao Te Ching asks of us patience with friends and enemies alike. The Bhagavad Gita labels as foolish those who do not see in every form of life something beautiful and holy. Those of us who call ourselves humanitarians and atheists with perhaps no attachment to organized religion also have loving regard for the dignity of all human beings in this vast diversity of the human race. So we come to this time in our nation's history with common commitment to human decency, when the human family is torn apart by those who see it as their right to discriminate based on race or religion or sexual orientation or class. And individual families are shattered by senseless deportation at the whim of a narcissistic few who want to flex their political muscle. It is a time for us to act as a community, to embrace the civil liberties of everyone in this community, to treat fairly even those who have violated laws, and to end discrimination that has its foundation in hatred, prejudice, greed, and privilege. And so we pray that you will give our Aurora City government insight and discernment as they lead us in the way of inclusion, respect, and dignity for all of our residents in this wonderfully diverse community in which we are privileged to live. So be it. Amen.
Good afternoon. The 2nd century sage, Rabbi Akiva, citing the book of Leviticus, taught, love your neighbor as yourself. He says that's the greatest principle of the Torah, of Jewish scripture. His colleague Shimon ben Azai differed. He said an even greater principle was the verse in Genesis, which taught that all people are created in the divine image. Apparently Ben Azai was concerned that people might limit the definition of neighbor, as some sages later did, to those who are just like you. They are the real neighbors. And thereby they might try to exclude people who are different in some way. He might have worried that love of neighbor implied reciprocity, doing for others because of what they have done for you, what they will do for you, an expectation of being compensated for the good we do to others. Thus he underlined this deeper principle by reminding us that all people are a reflection of the Almighty, and therefore all people are worthy of our love and care without thought of what they might do for us. The Torah states specifically in numerous places, love the stranger, to remind us that we may not turn our backs on others simply because they're not like us, or we find something distasteful about them. We have to look for the divine image within and to respond to it lovingly. I cite my tradition of Judaism, and yet we should know that in Christian teachings, Jesus underlines the same principles. If we look into the Quran and Muslim traditions, we'll encounter the same message taught by the Prophet Muhammad. We of the faith communities are united in our conviction that we must do as much as possible to help the stranger in our midst, to reach out, and recognizing the divine image provides shelter and hospitality to all in need. Significantly, the great patriarch claimed by all three traditions, Abraham and his wife Sarah, the matriarch, are known particularly for the virtue of hospitality. It said that Abraham's tent was open on all four sides, so he would not miss the opportunity to reach out, to offer food and drink and shelter
to wayfarers who pass by. So do our traditions teach us to act toward the stranger in our midst. We who profess this religious faith urge our public officials to embrace this message in concrete ways in our community to protect those who have sought refuge in this city. As we gather here today, may we all affirm this common faith and determine to act upon it vigorously. In the face of those who would encourage hatred and fear of others, let us declare our commitment to the love of neighbors, the love of the stranger, the values of hospitality and outreach to all people. May the Almighty bless this gathering, and may we draw strength from our common efforts to live the faith that we preach.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. May his peace and blessings be upon his prophets and his messengers and all those that follow in their blessed path. As we are gathered here before you, we ask you, our Creator, to bless this initiative of codifying the approach in treatment to minorities, inclusivity of all religions, including immigrants and refugees who call our city home. We are truly one humanity under you, dear God. You are our Creator. You are our Sustainer, O my Lord. We ask you today to guide us in living our ways in a way that is most pleasing to you. Please protect us from being people of injustice. Please give us the strength to work as one united force as we stand before you today, united, so we can help purify the world. Help us realize, our Lord, that you did not create us for bigotry or vengeance. You did not create our families, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, to be torn apart from each other. You did not create us to dominate or oppress one another for war. Help us, O dear God, to not pit ourselves against each other. Our Lord, you have said it, that to kill one is the same as to kill all of humanity. Please help stop the bloodshed of your creation, O dear Lord. O dear Lord, you say that you have created us from a male and female, and made us into tribes and nations, so we may know one another. You created us from one man and one woman, O my Lord. Sure, we do have different religions, but our goals are the same, and that is to spread peace and harmony by being good and kind to each other. By working in unity towards the common goal, which is our responsibility towards the betterment of our community and society that we live in. Oh dear God, please help put peace in our hearts so we may spread it. Please help us to unite, irrespective of faith and ethnic backgrounds. Help us work in unity towards the common goal. Our collective responsibility is towards the betterment of our communities and the society that we live in. You are the one God of Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad, and us all. We pray to you to help bring peace to each of us and the world around us. And we pray to you to bless this codifying initiative within the city of Aurora. May this become an exemplary model for other communities to follow. Please help us to unite and stand up for the rights of people who may not look like us, or worship like us, or come from places we come from. But we stand not just as one nation under God, but as one humanity under you, dear God. Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One world, one humanity, under one God. Prayers for peace. Amen.
Crazy microphone noises here, so we'll be flexible as we can. I love the signs. Yes. Thank you for the signs. I love them. I love them. All right. Good afternoon, Aurora. I said good afternoon, Aurora. All right, there we go. My name is Chuck Adams, and I am the Executive Director of Indivisible Aurora. Before I get into housekeeping for the day, I want to introduce the members of my executive committee. Where are they? Come on up here quickly. All right, I will start introducing them in the order in which it looks like they're about to come up the stairs. Randy Fisher is our group treasurer. He tracks all the pennies. Elisa Larch-Sesla is our media relations expert. If you're here, it's probably because she and Debbie have put together a great program. Brian Beatty is responsible for our social media footprint. He makes sure that everybody knows everything we're doing. John Sesla assists all of our members with our technology needs because not everybody's the alpha geek that he is. Julie Shelton is our indispensable secretary. Debbie Fisher is our lead coordinator, and Denise Clausen is head of our congressional trackers. Congress people would be very nice to, very weirded out to know that we know all of their movements based on that group. So thank you very much. Please give them a hand. Things like this don't occur without a lot of help from the folks on Indivisible. So thank you. We also have a number of members of our group in the audience, including guys in the lime green vest. All of these folks are instrumental in us doing the things that we like to do for Aurora, and so I want to make sure that you give them a hand as well. So thank you all, Indivisible members. I have 4 quick points that I want to make before we get started with the program. First, the revolution will be televised. So make sure you are tweeting, Facebooking, Snapchatting, Instagramming, and etc. throughout the day. Invite your friends who aren't here. To make it easy to follow along, what we're going to do is we're going to use the hashtag Freedom City Aurora. So hashtag Freedom City Aurora. Use that, get your message out to capture today's event, and make sure that we're sending our message out. Use every language you know, by the way. So let's make sure that we are out there publicizing this event as well as others. Because if it didn't happen, or if it didn't get recorded, it never happened. So that's the way we're living our lives now. Second, events like this cost money. And while I hate to be that guy, I have to ask for your financial support to offset the cost of events like this and to help us engage on progressive issues important to all of us. The easiest way to support us right now is simply go to GoFundMe.com, search on Freedom City Aurora, and donate. $5, $10, $15, whatever you can afford. It doesn't matter. All of these things cost us a little bit of money and time, and so it really helps us. We've also pasted the link at the top of our Facebook page at facebook.com/Indivisible Aurora. So go now, give loot. Third, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors who help us with the cost of events like this. ACLU of Illinois and Planned Parenthood of Illinois. That's right, give it up to them. These folks are amazing partners in advancing and protecting progressive causes. They stepped up to sponsor this event without hesitation when asked. Locally, the Aurora Huddle stepped up to sponsor this event as well. Born of the energy of the Women's March, the Aurora Huddle has fast become a force to be reckoned with defending progressive causes in our community. So give it up for our sponsors. I prayed for nice weather, man. It's warm up here now. We do have some folks over here who are taking membership sign up. So if you want to be a part of Indivisible Aurora, making sure that we're defending our progressive causes, please go over there, sign up. We also have some great t-shirts. Somos Familia, we are family. And so we have some t-shirts with Somos Familia and that phrase in multitude of languages that you can order over there. And of course, our friends with Planned Parenthood are there as well. We've also bought folks here who will help you register to vote. We don't care who you vote for, I really do, But just make sure you're registered to vote. Exercise your right to vote. Our last election for mayor, the candidate that I was personally backing, as Indivisible doesn't back candidates, lost by 156 votes. That's not a lot. That's about 1.2 people per precinct. So your votes count. Let's make sure that you're registered, make sure that you're exercising that right to vote. Fourth and finally, the purpose of this event. While it is always nice to get together with friends and hang out in the park on a beautiful day, and it is a beautiful day, the purpose of today is to illuminate the increasing challenges faced by Muslims, immigrants, and refugees in America generally, and in Aurora more specifically. We have an administration that is intent on villainizing and scapegoating citizens for any number of ills, most imaginary. They are purposely creating divisions and fomenting fear. And the victims of this insidious political posturing are vulnerable citizens already fighting to move from the margins of our society. We are going to fight back. Today you're going to hear stories of the very real impact of these policies. They're not abstract discussions. You also hear from the bold progressives fighting back against the onslaught of ugliness coming out of DC. And ultimately, we, Indivisible Aurora, want to use the engaged and energized people power you see here today to push for passage of the ACLU's Freedom City laws here in the Aurora City Council, codifying protections for all of our citizens, regardless of immigration status, isn't an ask of aldermen, it is a demand. You can read the laws back at the table, at the Indivisible Aurora table. We have blown them up so you can see them. So today this push begins. This is our goal. This is our mission. We need you to help us by holding aldermen accountable. Together, we can make Aurora safe for everyone. Thank you. Well, it's such a great day. I just love this. Our first speaker is going to be Yohnka from the ACLU. The American Civil Liberties Union has been on the front line of the battle against the administration's current policies regarding immigrants and refugees. Ed is the Director of Communication and Public Policy for the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois, a position that he has held since 1999. He is the primary spokesperson for the premier civil liberties and civil rights organization in this state. Prior to joining the ACLU, Ed served on the staff of the American Bar Association from 1987 to 1999, serving most of the time as special assistant to the ABA president. After leaving the ABA staff, he served as co-chair of the ABA Commission on Immigration. Please put your hands together for Ed Yohnka. So good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. It is such a beautiful day, we ought to at least make some noise, huh? In fact, we ought to make so much noise that they can hear us all the way in Washington, D.C. As Chuck said, I am Ed Yohnka. I'm the Director of Communications for the ACLU of Illinois. And I am so proud to be here today and to be part of this event. You know, let me just say one thing. When people ask, if you don't know what it is that the ACLU does and how we work, I'll just let you in on one little piece of information. In a couple of years, in 2020, the ACLU will have been around for 100 years. And over the course of 100 years, we have sued every single person who has ever sat in the Oval Office. And Donald Trump did not escape that fate. When Donald Trump brought forward not one, but two unconstitutional bans on people traveling to our nation simply on the basis of their faith, we went to court and we won. And he lost, and he still hates it. When Donald Trump comes forward with his immigration policies attempting to detain, hold, and deport people on a treadmill, we will challenge those policies too. We are not going to sit back and let our country become something different simply because of one election for a guy who he hates this part too, lost the popular vote. You know, there is a theme. There is a theme that comes from this administration. And I want to just test it for a moment if I can. How many of you here believe that we are stronger when we are united as one people? How many of you believe that? You know, sadly, that is not something that the current occupant of the White House seems to believe. What he believes is that we're stronger when we divide people against one another. When we say that you're different from you or you're different than you, so if I treat you one way, I can treat you the other way, and expect that we will all go along with that because somehow we gain if other people lose. That's not how freedom works. Freedom only works if we advance it for everyone. Freedom only works if we protect the rights of everybody. Because let me promise you this. If we let any group lose its freedom, it creates a precedent for all of us to lose our freedom, and we cannot let that happen. We have got to stand together. Here's the other thing that is amazing about this administration. They can talk a great game about how much they want law and order, how much they want the laws to be enforced, and how much they want to fight crime in our communities. And what is the very first things they then turn to do? They try to divide people from their law enforcement agencies on the basis of their immigration status. And what we know, without any doubt, we know that what will happen as a result of that, and what we see happening all around the country, is that police reports and police interactions for people who come from other countries are falling because people are afraid. We don't have to have that in our communities. Whatever their policies are, we don't have to have that. So we should support, as Chuck mentioned, the idea of creating a welcoming or a freedom city here in Aurora, across the Chicago metropolitan area, and all across the country. Everyone should be welcome here. And we can make that real. We can make that mean something. We can make that happen if, in fact, one of the things that we do and one of the things that we say is that in our local communities, in our neighborhoods, on our block, and around our home, we simply will not have local law enforcement enforcing federal law. Immigration law is federal law, and if they want to enforce that law in a widespread way without any real standards, they ought to do that without local help. Because what they want more than anything else is to turn every law enforcement officer in the country into part of their deportation force, and we simply cannot let that happen. Other clear part of this is that there have to be zones of safety in our communities. That we ought to be able to go to school and to go to a hospital, to go to a library, and to go to the police without fear that our immigration status is going to be questioned and that perhaps we'll be detained
and will be sent away somewhere and our families divided. That is something that we should demand both at the local level, but also at the state level and at the federal level. And if Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions don't want that, then we need to do even more to make sure that it happens here at the local level. We need to do even more to make sure that we are remaining unified, even as the attempt to divide us at the federal level continues. That is what you're here for. That is the thing that we ought to do. Let me just close by talking about a couple of experiences that I think many of us have had over the past few months. How many of you here were at one of the Women's March events right after the inauguration? Keep your hand up if you were at one of the Women's March events. Now keep your hand up if you were also at O'Hare on the night of the first band. Now, I want you to keep your hand up if you were at those two events and you're Muslim. You know, one of the most incredible things about those two events was that people came out not because a policy affected them or their family. They came out because the policy was wrong and hurtful and harmful. People didn't come out and protest simply because they were Muslim. They came out and protested because they understood if we started applying religious tests to people who entered this country, it wouldn't be very long before they get around to folks like us. They didn't go to the Women's March simply because they might be affected by the attack on women's reproductive health or our attacks on our friends at Planned Parenthood. They came out because they understood that those attacks lead to attacks on all of us and all of our health care. They don't go out and protest because they're transgender when the Department of Justice removes protection for transgender children in our schools. They do it because they recognize that the next thing they'll do is attack our children in those schools. We have 4 long years ahead of us. We have a lot of work to do. But just like the message of this rally, the only way to do it will be if we're all together, if we all stay unified, if we all work at the state and the federal, and especially like this at the local level. And let me say one last thing, because it's going to come up when you start to work your Freedom City resolution through your city council. You're going to hear that the Department of Justice is threatening you with a cutoff of federal funds if you try to protect people in your communities. And as far as I can tell you is from the ACLU, we've got your back on that one, because they are wrong on the law, just like they were wrong about the ban, just like they are wrong about everything else, and we are not giving up and going home. We are going to continue to resist with you. Thank you very much.
Give a hand to Ed. And it can't be said enough. Ed didn't ask for a donation, but my wife and I are frequent donators to the ACLU. These kinds of things cost money. Taking on an entire federal government, and the ACLU has been on the forefront of that battle. And their record is sitting pretty good right now. So support the ACLU. Our next speaker is Noura Al-Masri. Apologies. Noura is Syrian-American born and raised in Damascus, Syria. She's lived in Chicago since November of 2000, has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Damascus University, and an MS in business information technology from the College of Computing and Digital Media at DePaul. Go Blue Demons. She took different leadership roles at different nonprofits served as operation manager at Syrian Forum USA, a development manager at Justice for All, and a program director, Middle East at Zakat Foundation of America. Noor currently serves as chief strategist at Women's March Illinois and country specialist at Amnesty International, Middle East, North Africa co-group. Please welcome Nora.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you all. I'm so honored to be with you here at our beautiful city, Aurora. I lived in Aurora for the past 10 years, and everyone here was welcoming, nice people. I'm so proud to be one of you. As Syrian, I just want to give you a little background of what's going on in Syria, to see how important to keep ourselves here together, protecting each other, so we don't end up like Syria. No one was thinking there would be a war in Syria and Syrian people would be refugees one day. Just like 7 years ago, no one would imagine that. Simply, people in Syria revolted against the regime, the dictatorship of Assad family, who wanted to treat our country, Syria, as their farm. The father came through a military coup decades ago, and then when he passed away, they changed the constitution to fit his son's age so he can become the next president, and he did. And after over a decade, people had hope because of the Arab Spring, because in Syria you cannot talk politics. It's not our business. While it's affecting everyone's life, we know politics goes in everyone's home, everyone's personality, so it's our business. But people were so afraid to talk politics. So this is why we see now what's going on in Syria. When they started to say freedom, the regime is not used to this. Like usually they do whatever they want and no one speaks. Everyone afraid. They killed the people, the regime killed the people, and then they allowed terrorism to get into the country, and now everyone mistaking a revolution with terrorism, and they're claiming Assad, Russia, and everyone fighting terrorism, while the people are suffering, and the people who asked for freedom either killed, imprisoned, or had to be out of their country as a refugee. So this is how it starts, like dictatorship. When I saw Trump, what Trump's doing, I cannot help it without reflecting on Syria. How did the Assad regime took power and people were afraid? He's trying to scare people and telling them, this is fake media, don't listen to them, don't trust this, just take the information from me. It's like Assad, this is how he did. This is how Sisi in Egypt killed the revolution. This is how it starts. And if we are afraid, if we believe only one person, we're not gonna be in a better situation decades later. So it's our job to protect each other, to protect any minority, any person between us, because eventually it will hit each one of us. It has to start somewhere, but it will not end there. I just want to give you an example, like refugees. I was in a meeting with Amnesty International group. We had someone from Refugees One that day, and he was talking about some refugees, they have to wait 20 years in process and in order to given a country, assigned a country to live in. So I don't know if you heard of the Dadaab camp in Kenya. This is the oldest refugee camp. And people, it's 20 years old. That means like someone was born there and he's 20 or she's 20 and they're still living in the camp. Syrians now, 6 years, some of them being in the camp. They don't go to school, they don't do anything. When they apply to United Nations, It takes minimum of 2 years. This is when they pick their file. Once they pick their file, it takes 2 years of process. They go to extreme interviews from independent agencies, and they don't get to pick where to go to. They are assigned a country, whether in Europe or the US or Canada. They cannot pick. So refugees they don't pick a country. Okay, we're gonna go to that country. We want to blow it up. We want to hurt its people. They're waiting for a chance to live their life. So when they get out of the refugees camp or the country they cannot work or go to school at, they want to go to a country of a dream. So they can go to school, they can raise their kids, they can get another chance to live a regular life. Every one of us living every day. So to criminalize them, what does that make us? Like, we're not American anymore. We're not human being anymore. We're criminalizing someone who is looking for a new life. Are we gonna allow this to happen in Aurora? We have a lot of Syrians, Iraqi, Burmese refugees here in Aurora. They've been resettled here. So it's our job to protect them. Our job to make them feel welcome and help them to learn to integrate into our society, to live like any one of us living, pursuing their dream, raising their kids here. Actually, myself, I have my brother. Only one of my brothers is not here yet. He just graduated last year as a software engineer, but he is a part of us. So we are waiting. My mom applied for him to come, and because of his passport, because he is Syrian, it's taking so long. It's taking more than 2 years now, and he cannot be with us. But he's working now. He's waiting, hoping that he can come, see our kids, live with the entire family. And this is, one of the best stories. It's like we're still in luxury, but some people they cannot go to school. I met one refugee's family here. Their son told them he was 16 when he came here. He was out of school for 3 years. When they get the visa to come to the United States, they were not sure. They were afraid. Like, should we come different language? What if the people still like us? What if we couldn't offer a living? So they were hesitant a little bit. But then their son told them, okay, if you're not going, then I will go back to Syria. And you know what he could go back to Syria for? Like, either like he would be brainwashed, or he would be killed, arrested from the regime, or just, you never know, like lost. He cannot go to school anymore. So his family made a decision, no, let's go to the United States. And they're happy. They feel welcome here in Aurora. And thank you for all of you for making families feel welcome. Thank you so much.
Another shout out to the folks who have spoken so far. A great group of individuals bringing a lot of different experiences to us today. Don't forget to sign up for Indivisible Aurora if you're interested in being part of progressive causes like this. Also, our sponsors, Planned Parenthood of Illinois, have a table, and we are signing up voters. So if you're not registered to vote, register to vote. It is critical that you make your voice heard at the ballot box. All right, so I butchered Nora's name, so I'm going to do my best very carefully to say this one. Nadjate Yacoubou. Close enough? Close? Not even close. All right, Nadjate. Nadjate was born in Togo, Africa. When she was 14 months old, Nadjate, her mother, and her older brother were forced to relocate to a refugee camp for their safety. Conditions were frightening and deplorable. When she was 4 years old, World Relief brought them to Aurora, Illinois. Nadjate is now an honor roll student at Juany Middle School. Please welcome Nadjate.
Nadjate Yacoubou. I'm here representing the Aurora Huddle. I came to America as a refugee at the age of 4 through world war. As I'm the youngest, I don't remember the hardships we had to go through, but I have learned about the hardships we went through. I came to America without my dad, with just my mom to support me and my brother. When we first came to America, we did not have much. Only the support of world relief, America welcomed us. Aurora welcomed us. The people from Wesley Church in Aurora became our family. Donald Trump is not stopping terrorists. He's stopping parents who want the best for their families. As a child, I don't know what I would have done without my parents. So we cannot stand here and watch President Donald Trump break apart families. Immigrants and refugees are working hard for their families to have a better future. The goal of the Aurora Huddle is to make Aurora a freedom city. I'm standing here in front of you to tell you we cannot stand down until Aurora becomes a freedom city. Some are scared this will do more harm than good, but they will eventually realize that Aurora, the second biggest city in Illinois, also has a large population of immigrants. When they realize that, they will also realize we all stand together. As a refugee, the first thing you learn about America is that it is the land of the free and the brave. But has that changed? Will we be brave and protect everyone that lives in Aurora? Or will we stop because of fear? Will we express our right of free speech? I would like to share a quote with you from Martin Luther King. The ultimate tragedy is not the oppression and cruelty by the bad people, but it is the silence over that by the good. America was built up by immigrants and refugees. Your family was once immigrants, Mr. Trump. America was once a haven for people escaping persecution in Europe. What right does Trump have to stop refugees and immigrants from coming to America? This is not what America stands for. Let me ask you, does America stand for discrimination? No! Does Aurora stand for breaking apart families? No! Does Aurora stand for forcing people out of their homes? No! Does Aurora stand for becoming a freedom city? Yes! I'm inviting all young boys and girls to join me in this fight for our friends, parents, and every person in Aurora and in the United States because we stand together. I want you all to call your local representatives and support our goal of making Aurora a freedom city. Thank you.
Another hand for Nadjate. Again, the stories that we could tell aren't just abstract conversations when it comes to immigration and refugee policy. They impact real people's real lives. And so we want to make sure that we are engaged in this conversation. Our next speaker is Congressman Bill Foster. Congressman Foster. Well, I think my job is done here. Congressman Foster represents Aurora in Washington, D.C. As a scientist and businessman, he brings a rational and common sense approach to solving problems facing our community. During his time in office, Congressman Foster has applied the lesson he learned from his father, a prominent civil rights attorney and a key architect behind the enforcement language of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to fight for refugee and civil rights and comprehensive immigration reform. Please welcome Congressman Foster.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, but unfortunately I might have to make one small correction to that. Although I try hard to be calm and rational, there's occasionally things that happen that get me pissed off. So, well, good afternoon. I'm Congressman Bill Foster, and I'm proud to represent the 11th District of Illinois in the Congress of the United States of America. And I want to thank Indivisible Aurora, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood of Illinois, and the Aurora Huddle for their help in organizing this rally today. You know, I spend a good fraction of my time in the U.S. Congress defending things that you can't imagine we should have to defend in this country. And I flew back late last night from the Science March, where we were defending basic truth and scientific integrity in our country. You know, and truth is crucial. You know, truth, or actually lies, are the weapons that are used against immigrants in so many ways and in so many times in history. And the truth is that the attacks on truth, the attacks on science have been going on since long before the Trump administration. Last session of Congress, the Republicans convened a select committee to provide the rationale for defunding Planned Parenthood. And so when that report came out from that committee, which had a carefully constructed Republican majority on it, basically the fact checkers went ballistic. You know, one of the statements they made was that in 100 years of research, fetal tissue had never been used for any cure for any disease, any treatment for any disease, which should come as news to those who have been receiving treatments for cystic fibrosis, for hemophilia, and for rheumatoid arthritis and many other diseases. So, you know, this is the sort of thing that we fight at many levels. And then this administration came right out of the gate with offensive and ill-conceived ideas. And I guess for better or worse, we were at least initially saved by its incompetence. But that's not going to see us through the entire fight. And so it's coming together at events like this that will show what the values of our community and our nation truly are. So thank you all. When President Trump signed the first Muslim ban executive order, I convened members of our community at the Islamic Center of Naperville to hear how they would be impacted. And one of the speakers at the event, a young woman who's a junior in high school, told a story so touching that I asked her to join me at President Trump's joint address to Congress so that President Trump could look up in the audience and see the people that were affected by his bigotry. And I joined Democrats in introducing a bill that would block the administration from implementing the executive order. This policy, of course, would go on to get the appropriate drubbing from the federal courts, thanks in large part to the efforts of the ACLU and volunteer attorneys across the country. But one thing became clear in that chaotic weekend, though, and it was that fundamental disrespect that President Trump holds for our system of government and our courts. He railed against the judges, questioning their legitimacy, and folks were detained at airports in violation of court orders and denied legal counsel. It's absolutely crucial that everyone detained by our government understand their legal rights. And that's why I introduced the Immigrant Detainee Legal Rights Act, which requires detention centers to inform detainees of their legal rights at a minimum. Now President Trump may have taken his thumping in the courts on the chin and moved on, but instead he tried another Muslim ban. So we introduced a bill to block the implementation of that one as well. But the Republican leadership refuses to consider it or even let it come up for a vote. Since Republican leadership won't stand up to the president, we've tried other avenues. I asked the Secretary for Homeland Security to come to the Democratic caucus so that members could ask him questions and express our concerns, as the Secretary did repeatedly under the Obama administration, and he has not yet taken that invitation. I also joined an amicus brief filed in opposition to the Muslim ban. The point is that there are many ways to fight back, and we have to use them all. President Obama used the powers of the White House to make our immigration system, under the legal constraints he had, just a little bit fairer when the House Republican leadership would not act. President Trump is using it now to push discriminatory policy. That will hurt our economy, make us less safe, and damage our reputation abroad. One of the fights coming up this week will be over the president's wall on the Mexican border. I think I saw some signs out there about the wall. The government shuts down this week if we do not pass a budget. And so far, President Trump is insisting that that budget include funding for the wall. Okay? I don't think there's a Democrat that's going to support that. And in principle, it shouldn't be a problem because, of course, he promised the Mexican government would pay for it. But, I guess he's pretty well given up trying to convince the Mexicans to pay for it. But now he's just threatening us with shutting down the government. And if that's a fight they want to have on those grounds, bring it on. Now, setting aside the xenophobia and the discrimination behind the whole idea of the wall, which, at least for me, is not very easy to do, if the wall would not even be effective. One of the things he claims about the wall is that it would stop all the flow of opioids from Mexico. All right, fine, but there's a problem with that. First, it won't. A wall is way too easy to get around, over, or under. Drug smugglers are using drones, and I don't think he's going to build a wall so high that a drone can't fly over it. And secondly, many of the most harmful drugs are coming from China, smuggled in container freight. And the wall won't help you with that at all. And finally, the synthetic drugs are emerging, fentanyl, carfentanil, and the like, that can't be made anywhere. So this is not an easy problem, but lying to people that the wall will fix it doesn't do anyone any good. And the wall fails to fulfill even the simplest of its policy objectives. So why build a wall on the Mexican border? Every single Democrat and Republican member of Congress who actually lives along the border and represents an area near the border opposes the wall. So why is he doing this? We are led inevitably back to xenophobia and discrimination as the only reasons. I've joined my Democratic colleagues in introducing a bill that would block taxpayer dollars from being used to build the wall under any circumstances. And we also introduced legislation to block the planning for the wall that President Trump has already ordered. Because walls are fundamentally antithetical to our values. We're a nation of immigrants, and we have always grown when we've been inclusive. And history has not looked kindly at us when we have failed to welcome immigrants or refugees in the past, and this time will be no different. Refugees today are often fleeing the same enemy that we are out to defeat. They are fleeing both the Assad regime and the brutality of the Islamic State, and part of defeating ISIS means protecting those that they would persecute. So it's crucial that we provide a robust and efficient system for bringing the world's most vulnerable populations into our protection. And what this means is taking a comprehensive look at our refugee vetting process for ways to improve them and not to make them more difficult to implement. It also means finally turning and succeeding in comprehensive immigration reform. It is one of the tragedies of recent history how close we came to achieving comprehensive immigration reform and how different the history of our country would be today had that succeeded. For over a year and a half, after the Senate passed comprehensive immigration reforms, I was one of the members of the House who went around getting quiet commitments from a large number of Republicans that if we could bring it up to a vote, Republicans and Democrats a majority in the House would vote for it. And the decision of one man, Speaker John Boehner, for over a year and a half, instead of listening to his church or listening to the spirit that should be inside all of us, blocked it from even having a vote. And when our democracy fails in that manner, it lowers everyone's faith in our democracy, and I believe was a big contributor to the despair that many are feeling in the United States today. This idea of comprehensive immigration reform had broad support from the business community as well as immigration activists. We absolutely need and still need a pathway to citizenship for those who are already here that will allow them to come out of the shadows and live productive lives as full participants in our economy. And that is why I'm a strong supporter of DAPA and the DACA programs until we pass legislation to make them permanent. It was recently reported that the Trump administration has now deported its first protected dreamer. The facts are not all in yet, but what we do know is that there are things that we can do to welcome dreamers instead of making them feel ostracized and endangered. So thank you all again for coming out today. This message will be heard. For most dreamers, I've several times urged the Secretary of Defense to do something that he could do at any moment, which is simply allow dreamers to enlist in the military. For most dreamers, the United States is the only home they've ever known. And to a person, they love our country. Military service should be a non-controversial path to citizenship. And the Secretary of Defense has the authority to allow dreamers to serve and should have exercised it long ago. Another small but potentially significant thing that can happen today and should be happening. And finally, I support the Bridge Act, which would codify the protections of the dreamers. This will remove the uncertainty with which hundreds of thousands of people live daily. So, I had dinner last summer with a family that would be split up by the voiding of President Obama's executive orders. Like so many families that are threatened by attempts to undermine DACA and DAPA, they work hard, they pay their taxes, they contribute to our community, and they're simply trying to create a better life for their family and their children. So the reasons for overhauling our broken immigration system are numerous and they are obvious. And the most obvious, I think, is the history of our nation and our humanity in welcoming others. But the reasons are also dry and empirical. The economic benefits are enormous. The Institute of Taxation and Economic Policy showed that immigration reform would increase Illinois state and local taxes by almost $150 million a year. And last I heard, Springfield could use that money. But in fact, if you do the opposite, if all unauthorized immigrants were removed from Illinois, then Illinois would lose $25.6 billion in economic activity. And those are jobs, and that's economic activity that we cannot lose. In fact, that translates to 120,000 jobs. So that's, as much as anything, why I'm here today. I join you here in protecting our nation's immigrants and to support a system that we should have that will be fair to everyone who wants to come here to live better lives. And I'm proud to stand before all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Foster. Our next speaker is Erica Vivaldi. Erica is a 23-year-old student of NIU pursuing a bachelor's degree in civic leadership and civic engagement, as well as in family and child services with an emphasis in family social services. She doesn't have very much free time is what that means. Her hope is to use her voice and her power to help minorities group being targeted in the current political environment. She is an ally to minorities, immigrants, documented and undocumented, and refugee communities. She believes that people and communities have the power to create change if we collectively support one another. Please welcome Erica.
Mi familia is made up of my brother. I have 4 sisters and my mother. Our family is full of love and we support one another. As many families, we have endured hardships, and one of those hardships is the fact that we are a mixed status family. And when I say mixed status families, I mean that we have both family members that are U.S. citizens and they're also undocumented. Something I want to emphasize is that this is not only a Latino issue. We have many families from all over the country that face the same hardship that my family does as well. My older sister and my mother are 2 of the estimated 11 million undocumented in our communities. Sorry. Mixed status families face challenges both individually as well as a unit. Individually, our children are scared and worried that our parents are going to be deported. Our undocumented students in our communities and in our families are told at a young age that college is important and they should pursue college. But they are not warned of the emotional, mental, and financial struggles they will have to face. As a unit, mixed status families are affected in the fact that they are broken. They're broken when they have family members that are deported. My sister said the following in a recent interview. My anxiety level is rising. I've had difficulty sleeping, and I had difficulty talking to my siblings about the issues that I go through. Now more than ever, we need to support our communities as well as other communities being targeted. As people, we have power in our stories and in our actions. Get involved in any capacity you have, because I can tell you right now, last year, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I hate public speaking. I wasn't really good at it, but I've had mentors and I've learned of not only the struggles that my family, my community is facing, as well as, but also the struggles that other communities are facing. Find who your representatives are and demand for the legislation that protects our families. Challenge the negative rhetoric that is being said about our families and our communities. Challenge it with facts, not with insults. And I just wanted to end with a saying that I'm actually looking at right now. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. The community united will never be divided or defeated. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. What a wonderful job. Erica was a last-minute addition because we thought we needed the stories told of those people being impacted by these particular executive orders and legislation by the current administration. So thank you very much, Erica, for sharing your story. It's taken us about 3 weeks to put this together, and so I appreciate all of you making time on such a beautiful day to come out. During the past 3 weeks, I've been asked more than once why I'm so passionate about the causes we discussed today. My citizenship status is pretty secure. I'm born of parents who were born here, of parents who were born here, of parents who were born here. The question still catches me off guard because I think one doesn't have to be Latino to be distressed at the suspect treatment of Latinos. I don't have to be a Muslim to be alarmed at the demeaning treatment of Muslims in this country. I don't have to be a woman to be appalled at the continual sexism and violence that women face every day. All I have to be is human. Empathy is a powerful emotion. It allows us to experience and understand the struggles others experience without having to experience those ourselves. With that in mind, let me appeal to the empathy of those who sit in the Aurora City Council, empowered with the ability to ensure the safety of this community and the protection of all of its citizens. Natural born, documented, undocumented, Jew, Christian, Muslim, gay or straight, male or female. When you are graced with power and authority, it is the fair and just leader who wields it with empathy, who tries to imagine what it would be like to be targeted for abuse because of how you pray, who you love, or when you came to this amazing and blessed nation. This past election cycle in local politics, we heard a great deal about how much some of our politicians love Aurora. They couldn't stop talking about it. But there's a difference between claiming to love Aurora and actually loving Aurorans. Loving them enough to do what is right and just by them. You see, I'm here today because I love all Aurorans. And my love for you isn't predicated on whether you look like me, whether you're the same gender as me or grew up like I grew up. My love for you isn't predicated on who you love or how you love. It isn't predicated on where you live in town or how big your house is. It isn't predicated on the language you speak at home, how long you've been in Aurora, or your immigration status. This is the essence of what love is. It isn't waiting to see what is popular or politically tenable. It isn't ignoring the reality on the ground and governing as if we don't have issues to deal with, hoping that it will pass. It isn't looking to Washington or Springfield for direction when your citizens at home are pointing in the direction they seek for you. We are looking for leaders who lead, not who follow. One of the persistent arguments against freedom, welcoming sanctuary cities and their ordinances is that we could raise the ire of a hostile administration, that we potentially put hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal funds at risk. I don't know about you, but not doing what's right because there might be consequences isn't a good enough answer. It wasn't good enough answer for those who battled an empire for the freedom of a young nation. For those like Lincoln who risked tearing a nation apart in the hopes of bringing it back together as a country of freed men and women. For those who fought courageously for women's suffrage. Or for those who put lives on the line in the fight for African Americans to vote, work, and live where they wanted. And finally, it wasn't good enough for those who harnessed the spark of Stonewall to light the fire of revolution for our LGBT brothers and sisters. Leaders lead. They do not acquiesce to threats or bullying. What we want is simple. We want these rules included in an ordinance which will be debated and discussed in open forum and then passed and made law in this great city. We want every alderman on record with their position. We want to see who leads and who follows. In the end, we want Aurora to stand indivisible with all of its citizens and proclaim to all who will listen that Aurora stands with its neighbors and protects all of its citizens. Thank you. God bless you.
What do we want? We want it.
Now, I want to introduce Deb Pierce. Deb is an international educator who has worked with arcane immigration regulations for most of her 33 years career. She must have started work when she was 2. She has seen firsthand how individuals trying to follow rules and do the right things for their families can get caught up in horrible problems. She has also worked with many brilliant, caring, and hard-working immigrants who have made our state and nation stronger. For the last 10 years, she has advocated annually in Washington for comprehensive immigration reform that would provide a pathway to citizenship for those living in the shadows. With Diane McGuire, Deb co-founded Indivisible Naperville, Our Neighbors, in January of 2017. Please welcome Deb.
Thank you so much, Chuck, and thanks to all of you and Indivisible Aurora for this great demonstration today. Hooray! Indivisible Naperville, the group that I co-founded with Diane McGuire and now Barbara O'Meara, is so happy to be here with our sister Indivisible group. Although you guys have really great t-shirts and great banners, and I'm so impressed. Very cool. In Indivisible Naperville, we always start our meetings this way. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Can't hear you. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Absolutely. We are indeed what democracy looks like. And boy, are we diverse here today and all of the other times we've gotten together. Fired up and ready to go. And we have to stay fired up and keep on speaking out for what's right. We have to keep on defending our neighbors because it's the right thing to do, as Congressman Foster said. And because when we do that, we're really defending ourselves and our nation. Immigration regulations are, woo! That's making a lot of noise. You want me to hold it? Okay, all right. Immigration regulations are so complex. Wow, I worked with those things for a very long time. Ooh, this is better. Woohoo! Okay. And I worked with them so that we could have wonderful students and wonderful faculty at NIU where I worked. Go Huskies! Yeah, make the Husky sign. Okay. If we didn't have immigrants, Northern Illinois University would not have the fabulous physics department it has today, nor would it have the outstanding College of Engineering and Engineering Technology. Immigrants make us great at NIU. Without such immigrants, state universities in Illinois would not be able to educate the sons and daughters of Illinois taxpayers, especially in fields of high technology, in the STEM fields. But I gotta say, high skills immigration is not enough. We must codify DACA through the Bridge Act. Yay! As Congressman Foster said, it's introduced by our own Senator Durbin, who's done great work on this topic for so many years. And his co-sponsor, yes, Lindsey Graham. And then in the House by Representative Gutierrez and Representative Kaufman from Colorado. So there's a strong Illinois flavor to the Bridge Act. Hooray! This is so important. We must provide a pathway to citizenship for our neighbors who are currently living in the shadows. We must stop terrorizing our neighbors who are just trying to do the best they can for their families. Because, you know, it's not a zero-sum game. Supporting the dreams of our immigrant neighbors does not diminish what remains for the rest of us. Instead, it increases the total pie. And discrimination and hatred are wrong and not worthy of this great community of Aurora or my home of Naperville, not worthy of our great state of Illinois. We must move forward. And in order to move forward, We've got to stay active and fired up. We can't just go to a couple marches. We've got to go to lots and lots of marches. We've got to keep talking to all of our leaders. We must follow the indivisible principles, which say that we work locally with our own members of Congress and also with our state senators and representatives. Here in Aurora, you're lucky to have State Senator Linda Holmes and State Representative Chapa LaVia representing you in Springfield. I gotta say, you're luckier than we are in Naperville, but that's okay. I'm not gonna be partisan. But even though you have great representatives in Springfield, that doesn't mean you can skate and say, oh yeah, I know that Senator Holmes and Representative Chapa LaVia are doing the right thing, so I don't have to do any work myself. Wrong, okay? Tell them how you feel. Tell them when they do something good. They need to know that you've got their backs, okay? So let them know. And join Indivisible Aurora if you haven't already, because they need your participation, and maybe you can get a cool purple t-shirt. As former Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill said, all politics is indeed local. So let's work hard locally to pass the ACLU Freedom City policies right here in Aurora. Let's end the draconian immigration enforcement of the current administration in Washington, D.C. Let's advocate nationally to get justice for Juan and for all of the Dreamers and DACA students, and pass the Bridge Act. Thank you, everyone. This is really what democracy looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. Very inspiring. Our treasurer just told me that since the beginning of this, we've had $220 donated so far. That is not bad. We can do better. Go to GoFundMe.com. Just search on Freedom City, Aurora, and you can donate $5, $10, whatever you want to make sure that we can do programs like this throughout the year as well. So thank you for those who have donated. For those who haven't, thank you in advance, because I'm sure that you will be before you end the day. Our next speaker is Valerie Forrest. Valerie is a resident of West Chicago, where she has lived her entire life. She's also an advocate and employee of Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood is a trusted healthcare provider, an informed educator, a passionate advocate, and a global partner helping similar organizations around the world. Planned Parenthood delivers vital reproductive health care, sex education, and information to millions of women and young people worldwide. It is said that 20% of women in America have an interaction with Planned Parenthood during their lives. Please welcome Valerie Forrest.
Hello, Aurora. I'm Valerie Forrest. I am a medical assistant at Planned Parenthood of Illinois. Thank you, Indivisible Aurora, for hosting this event and for including Planned Parenthood. It is such a great treat to talk to all of you about Planned Parenthood and the work that we are doing in Illinois. For 100 years, Planned Parenthood has been a trusted reproductive health care provider, and we are not going anywhere. At Planned Parenthood, we believe that all people deserve the highest quality of care, no matter who they are, where they live, or where they are from. Our doors are open to everyone regardless of their immigration status. Immigrants and refugees, thank you. Immigrants and refugees are a vital part of the Planned Parenthood community. They are our patients, our volunteers, our activists, our supporters, our clinicians, and our staff. We know what happens when communities that already face barriers in accessing care are driven further into the shadows. They must leave the care they need to preserve their own safety. Refugees who have left everything behind and are forced to negotiate their safety in unfamiliar countries and language
also face unique barriers to care. We've seen this firsthand through our health centers. At Planned Parenthood, we believe that the health has no borders and that the ability to live and thrive without fear and to access health care are basic human rights. Planned Parenthood health centers are proud to provide high-quality care to everyone, period. Globally, Planned Parenthood is proud to support partners across Africa and Latin America to advance health and rights in their own communities. An attack on Planned Parenthood, a trusted healthcare provider for immigrants across the country, is an attack on immigrant rights. Defunding Planned Parenthood would have a significant negative impact on the health of immigrant communities where people already face extreme barriers when it comes to accessing care. PPIL, which stands for Planned Parenthood of Illinois, provides care to patients all over the state at 16 health centers, 9 in the greater Chicagoland area and 7 in central Illinois. PPIL provides reproductive health care to over 60,000 patients each year. Those services include birth control counseling, STI testing and treatment, cervical and breast cancer screenings, HIV testings, annual exams, and medication and in-clinic abortions. We are also joining forces with organization on events and actions across the state, including the Women's March on Springfield on April 25th and the May Day Rally in Chicago May 1st. So many rights are being threatened right now, and it is up to us to show for each other and fight back. When the extreme politicians like your neighbor to the west, Peter Roskam in Illinois 6, talk about defunding Planned Parenthood, this means Medicaid and Title X are on the line. They are talking about prohibiting patients from using their Medicaid coverage to pay for preventative care like family planning, cancer screenings at Planned Parenthood health centers. Defunding Planned Parenthood and thus reducing the availability of quality, trusted health care providers would strike yet another blow to undocumented women's already limited access to reproductive health care. People don't go to Planned Parenthood to make a political statement, they go for care. This is about denying people their ability to go to a provider they know and trust. This country was founded by immigrants and on the values of equality and safety for all. We are prepared to stand alongside our partners to fight back against hate and discrimination. Thank you all for coming out and continuing to fight for what is right.
My wife and I have a running activity that we do, that every time we drive by the Planned Parenthood around from the corner from our house and there are protesters out there, we circle into the parking lot and go donate money. My wife is more aggressive than I am. She rolls down the window on her ways out and tells them what she just did. So I typically just roll out of there, but so our next speaker is State Representative Chapa LaVia. Linda represents the 83rd Representative District, which includes Aurora, Montgomery, and North Aurora. She was born, raised, and educated in Aurora, and was the first member of her family to complete college, earning her bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois in Chicago. While in college, Linda honed her leadership skills as a cadet in ROTC. Over the next 10 years, she served as a commissioned officer in the U.S. Army and the National Guard. In 2002, she was the first ever in 2002, Latino ever elected outside the city of Chicago into the Illinois state legislature. Ever. Linda has long sought to promote economic development opportunities in our communities. She has fought for infrastructure improvement programs in the region and for budget reforms that force this state to live within its means, pay its bills, and fund the pension systems, giving job-creating businesses the confidence to create and retain jobs in Illinois. As a veteran, Linda is determined to make sure Illinois soldiers and her fellow vets get the services and care they need. She has fought protect needed funding for veterans programs and has supported new laws that hold the line on property taxes and make it easier for Illinois veterans to attend to college. Please welcome Representative Chapa LaVia.
You guys donate more money. It's so important. Hey, Jason, how are you doing? So, I was at the Islamic Center with ICN earlier, and they're awesome, first of all. So today I'm representing not only the Latino community, but my Islamic friends that this president has decided to ban from this country. This puts fear, this hijab puts fear in some people's hearts, and I just don't know why. And I explained to my friends there, my brothers and sisters, that we need to do a better job of showing the face of every immigrant. Since I've been in office for 15 years, it always seems that there's a brown face up here. The Latino community has taken a step above and beyond, regardless of if we get hauled away and detained, because we believe in the American dream just like everybody else. And I want to give that voice today to all the children I meet, especially here in Aurora, that are afraid that their parents are going to be deported while they're in school. They're in tears. This government is not the government I signed up for. This government has to be kinder and more compassionate towards everybody. Trump's extreme views on immigration have made it necessary that statewide officials must get involved in making these communities and our communities safer. And I wholeheartedly stand in solidarity with you, Chuck, and our group, Indivisible Aurora, to make sure that Aurora also knows its city council, its newest mayor-elect, knows on how we feel together in this community of ours. I am here today to let you know that I'm ready to protect our local families. I'm ready to protect our residents here that have not the ability to come out their doors because we're afraid to being picked up and taken away. We need to be the voice. If anybody read that Inquirer for Aurora, the Beacon News today, and I'm sorry if there's any reporters here, but their open line was so racist today. It made me so uncomfortable about being here in Aurora. When have we ever acted that way towards our fellow Aurorans? We love people in this community. We go out of our way to make sure if someone doesn't have a home or doesn't have clothing or doesn't have a dime, that we help out in our community. So it was very disturbing this morning. I've sponsored legislation to help create immigration safe zones this year, and hopefully that will come through. My Senator gubernatorial candidate Biss is carrying it over in the Senate, so we hope to get that through, and we hope that you are calling our governor to make sure he knows we want that legislation signed. Policies like House Bill 426 will ensure that our students are safe when they're at school. What is more important than these safe havens for our children at schools? This legislation will hinder those who are trying to harm or displace those who have lived in our community. I have sponsored and been honored to sponsor legislation that directly combats and condemns Donald Trump's horrific travel bans in our state. Immigration communities within our states have enriched our neighborhoods and provided us with a daily reminder that even though we all may seem different, down deep inside we are the same. We all deserve the same rights, education, employment, housing, and safety. And as I stand here, I stand with you. And if there's anything we can do at our level, I will do that, and I will stand with you. I want to thank you for your participation today in the democracy and giving me faith that it hasn't fallen flat. But we have to do something. Our state is controlled by a Republican that feels kind of like the President of the United States. It's almost as if we're an upside down world. We need you more than ever, my friends, my family. I love you, but I need you to voice your opinions. I need you to go to Springfield. I need you to contact your legislators like we're doing all the Republicans standing outside their doors and finding out how their stance on immigration. But it's more than that. It's your way of life. Now, everybody remembers that poem, They Came for Me. It only takes one of our sector of this community taken away and us be voiceless. And they can continue to keep on doing that. That's not the America I fought for. That's not the America I represent in Springfield. And that's definitely not the America I want my daughters to grow up in. So please, thank you for your support. But please, we have a fight ahead of us like never before. Voice your opinions now. Don't wait until 2018 for an election. Every day should be election for us. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Representative Chapa LaVia. So, we have a speaker who's missing in action. She is stuck in traffic. So, I'm going to read her bio just so you know who you missed to whet your appetite so that you come next time when we have her down. Maria Mosafar is a counsel for American Islamic Relations, Chicago's legislative attorney. She is a civil rights attorney, policy drafter, and legislative consultant. She has spearheaded civil rights coalition building, advocacy programs, and consulted political citywide campaigns. She has drafted statewide legislation on criminal justice reform, food justice, and academic diversity. Ms. Mosafar is the principal attorney at the law offices of Maria Mosafar, where she focuses on policy development, advocacy, and mediation. She received her JD from the University of Illinois at Urbana and is licensed to practice in the state of Illinois. She is also the senior policy advisor at Iman and a member of the Human Rights Watch campaign of Chicago. So let's give her a hand anyway. And so as we reach the end, I want to do a meta photo. Me taking a picture of you, taking a picture of me. All right, all right. All right, say cheese. That's our program for the day. I really appreciate you guys coming out. Politics are local. We have advocated or given away a lot of positions in government office over the last few years by not showing up and allowing Republicans and people who might be hostile to our particular progressive values to run unopposed. What you can do is get involved, stay engaged, run for office, support those who run for office, get involved in organizations like Indivisible Aurora, Indivisible Naperville, support our progressive partners like Planned Parenthood and ACLU, and let's keep the fight going. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good afternoon. All right, take care, everyone.